Hello, everybody. I am Roger B. This is the Locked and Loaded Show, and you're listening to America's Web Radio. And today we're going to talk about gun stuff. And guns are big because politics are big, and politics are involved in gun rights all the time. In fact, guns only have two serious enemies, rust and politicians. And right now, there's plenty of available lubricants and protections for guns from rust. But the politicians, the protections are far and away much harder to get.
You got any hard abrasives that'll keep away politicians?
Yeah, I wish. But anyway, it's crazy because these politicians are just they think that American citizens are not smart enough, not responsible enough to exercise their Second Amendment rights. And let me just reinforce something here. I know everyone goes, the Constitution says we have the right to own guns. Well, it does not. It says the government cannot infringe on your right that God gave you to own guns and protect yourself and your family.
That's a great point, Roger, because people need to remember our rights aren't derived from government. We're probably the only country on the planet where our rights are not derived from government.
That's right. Your natural born right is to be able to protect yourself and defend yourself. And the Second Amendment states the government cannot make any laws to infringe on a right that you were born with. So don't think the government gives you the right and they can take it away. That is not how this works.
And that's a perfect way to put it, Roger, because any right a government gives you is one that they can take away.
Right.
In fact, Thomas Jefferson had a wonderful quote way back. This is how brilliant the Founding Fathers were. He has a quote. Any right a government can give you is one they can take away.
Right. Like driving. Driving is a privilege. It is not a right. You do not have the right to drive a car on public roads. You can drive a car on your own road all day long. That's right. And they can take it away if you violate their rules. But
or if they kill the oil industry.
Yeah, well, there'll be electric cars or rubber band powered cars That's right. Or Flintstone powered cars. Thanks, Brett, for that.
You better get some sturdy feet.
Shoes will become a much higher priority. Pedal cars, that would be interesting.
Pedal cars.
Yeah.
Hey, how many CO2 cartridges would it take to propel a human car?
I don't know. That would be all compressed air, maybe a big scuba tank in the back of your car. Let me put some fuel in this thing.
Now this would be a fun experiment.
Oh wait, they could use the scuba tank to blow air onto a windmill, which AOC would just love that.
She would love that. I mean, a lot of compressed air, hot air. She knows about that.
Yeah, hot air would be energy too. Yeah. But okay, but your right to own a gun is not given to you by the Second Amendment. It is protected from government interference or restriction by the government. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The government shall make no law to. Most of the Bill of Rights start with that phrase. The government shall make no right to infringe on this right, that right, or the other right. So your rights are not given to you by the government. They are yours, and the government is restricted from taking them away by the Bill of Rights. So don't forget that. Next time someone says, well, the Constitution doesn't give you the right to... No. The Constitution says the government cannot take away a right I already have. Don't let them try and tell you, it was only applying to muskets. Oh, God, I just want to kick somebody in the musket when I hear him say that. But anyway. Okay, now let's get into this defunding police business, because this is still an issue now, apparently, where there are cities that are trying to defund the police, and the police are losing their immunity to certain prosecutions based on the fact that they're police officers, and they are given a little bit of extra leeway in a lot of cases because a lot of instant decisions have to be made. These guys make life and death decisions almost every day. Well, some of them. No, mostly all of them. Whether I should eat 3 donuts or 1 donut, it's still a life and death decision.
Depends on if it's a Krispy Kreme. Then I might have 2.
That's right. But I mean, cops have a tough job. I would not want to do it for 5 times that they get paid. I wouldn't want to do that job. Have tough. People yelling in my face, spitting on me,
calling them names,
and me have to stand there and until he makes a deadly threat. I can't do anything.
I mean, even Antifa and BLM called black officers racist.
Right.
Explain that one to me.
What do they call it? All ACAB. ACAB, all cops are bastards. Yeah, so that's, So, and it's funny because they don't want us to lump protesters into a big group of all protesters are not violent. Well, all cops are not bad.
Exactly.
All doctors are not bad. All politicians are not.
Well,
Let's not go. Let's not state that just yet. We don't know about that for
don't
sure.
go crazy.
That's right. There are limits.
That's right.
Let's say not all politicians are good.
Yes, not all politicians.
But apparently in Aurora, Colorado, the residents are strongly starting to figure out that the police aren't protecting them anymore. They're not answering calls. They don't want to get out there and, have to deal with violent felons and maybe have to shoot somebody and have their family torn apart and be threatened by everybody because their life was threatened and they had to defend themselves. Cops don't carry guns to defend you. They carry guns to defend themselves. Yeah. And it was funny because it's, there was a couple of examples here. This is from back in October, but it's something I didn't get to in the last couple of weeks when I was here. But they apparently stood down twice in 2 days when confronting a violent felon who was exposing himself to young girls and destroying property and threatening to harm the residents of an apartment complex. And twice they confronted him and they just walked away. As soon as he calmed down or walked the other way or walk away, they'd say, "Okay, there, it's done. We don't have to take him into custody. We don't want to deal with him." So if you want to defund your police, be prepared to handle this kind of stuff yourself, because they're not going to come out there and protect you. They're not going to come out there and put their lives on the line for you if you're not going to stand behind them. I mean, you have to have police who are not afraid, because if they're afraid to touch anybody or do anything, they're useless. You might as well have Boy Scouts out there or Girl Scouts throwing cookies at them. I know a good box of cookies can put a dent in somebody maybe, but...
it depends on how old they are.
That's right.
You get a stale cookie, and that's kind of like a Palestinian rock.
Forget the cookie. Just throw the whole box.
There you go. That's right. Because the proper edge of a box.
A corner of a cookie box in the temple. There you go. Take them down. Then they can still be sold.
That's right.
Dented and scratched, but not opened.
But not opened.
I don't recommend using cookies as projectiles.
No, we are not recommending violence.
That's right. But, I mean, that's what it may come to. I mean, if you have police who aren't willing to stand up for you unless something is, just so brazen that, it can't be ignored, then they may have to act. But they're letting a lot of little things go now. They're not answering a lot of calls where there's, possible domestic violence, or they're going in very light, going, "Oh, well, we don't see anything here when we get here. We're not going to go knock on the door. We don't want to get into this." So be careful what you ask for, because you might just get it. You want defunded police? Sure, you might get it. Then you have to defend yourself.
Yep.
And sure, you may have had a bad interaction with a police officer. You may have had all good ones. I don't know. Most people, I think, when they interact with police, is generally is with traffic stops. I would say 90% of the people who have interactions with police are generally traffic stops. And those are never pleasant, and it's bad that politicians have turned police into revenue collectors by writing tickets. It's so sad, because they used to be community protectors. They used to be involved in the communities. They used to know the people in their communities. When they actually walked a beat or drove around, they got to know the people in the neighborhood. Well, it seems like now, especially in these big cities, it's crazy. There was one more event in Aurora, Colorado. A more recent incident involved a child abuse suspect with multiple warrants who was on parole, who barricaded himself inside his house with one of his children and some firearms. And the cops walked away, and the perpetrator is still on the loose. So just be aware. These cops they're not gonna risk their lives for you if you're not willing to at least stand up and support them. They need your support in order to do their jobs. And I'm wondering how many cops are sitting there going, "You know what? I've about had it. I'm done. I'm going to leave. I don't want to do this anymore. This is not the job I wanted." They're
retiring in record numbers from the NYPD.
Oh, and even local. There's local county police here that have signs where they're paying thousands of dollars of signing bonuses just to come sign up, try to be a cop. And most people, it's not the job it used to be. Mm-mm. You ask kids today what they want to be, police officers probably not high on the list anymore.
What people need to understand, Roger, and you kind of touched on it, a police officer gets up in the morning and they go to work, and the number one thing on their mind is to make it back home alive.
Right.
So they're going to protect themselves. And if they don't have the backing or the funding of the community of which they serve, then they're not going to put their life in danger to save yours.
That's right. that's normally what they do, but they expect support from the community.
Right, absolutely.
And communities used to do that. You see a cop in trouble, you'll stop, you'll pull over, you'll ask if he needs assistance.
Yeah.
You know, you might be able to do that. Now, that you have to be very careful with that, knowing who the right guy is too. Don't get involved in something that's not your business, because that could get you in more trouble.
Right.
But apparently in Aurora, how bad has it gotten? Let's see. At the last reporting, murders were up 72% over the same time last year. Armed assaults were up 35%. Robberies up 31%. All major violent crime categories were up at least 24%. Grand Theft Auto, now that's not the video game, but actual Grand Theft Auto, up 53% from last year.
And I guarantee you that these criminals aren't going, "Oh, you're a Democrat. Oh, okay, I won't."
Yeah, they don't care what your political affiliation is.
They don't give a rat's. You know what? They, in fact, will probably rob you or whatever they're going to do, and then thank you for defunding the police to allow you to be their victim.
Yeah. And now, okay, the crime. I just read all the statistics. That was up from last year. Arrest of potential suspects is down 45% from 2019. So the crime is up, arrests are down. Police are arresting barely half as many people as they were.
That is a horrible formula.
But that's we need to get rid of the police. They're bad. Oh, they're shooting us in the streets. They're killing us.
I am all for not arresting non-violent, drug offenses and things like that. I don't have a problem with. Let's go to treatment instead. But when you start not arresting violent crime, you don't
child molesters who barricades himself in a house with a gun and a child.
Oh, let's walk away from this one.
Well,
when we get to that point, like we're getting now in these places where they're defunding the police, it ain't gonna lead to a good place.
And they're starting off subtly too. It's like they're boiling the frog. In case you haven't heard me say, okay, boiling the frog. I'm going to give a quick rundown. You throw a frog into a pot of hot water, he's going to jump right out. You put him in cool water and turn it up very slowly, inch it away. He's going to sit there till he boils.
Yeah.
He's going to kill himself. He won't know.
By the time he realizes it's too late.
And they're starting to do this with police tactics. They're saying, oh, you can't put your knee on him. You can't hold his hand behind his back. You can't push his head this way. You can't stress this. You can't touch him until he does this. They're going to make it harder and harder for police to do their jobs against people who are doing violence against citizens. And, it's going to be, and then it's going to throw the job of protection, and you being a first responder is going to become you. That's going to be you. You better become a first responder. Because if you're not, you will have nobody.
I believe, Roger, we like to talk about movies and old movies because we're a couple of old farts. I believe there was a movie out there once called Citizens on Patrol. Or Police Academy, Citizens on Patrol.
Perhaps I don't remember that one, but okay.
It's something like that. But we're rapidly going to get to a point where we really are going to have to be citizens on patrol.
Right.
And it isn't going to be citizens on patrol with a telephone or a little can of mace.
Well, there was a.
You got to be able to protect yourself because there is going to be no one at the other end of 911.
Well, there was a story written. I don't have it in front of me, I don't think, or if I do, I can't find it. But they were saying that gang members will likely fill the void of quote unquote protection if police no longer answer calls and are not as prevalent as they were. As soon as the police drop down, there's going to be a void. There's going to be a vacuum that's going to be filled by people who think they can do the job better or who already do this kind of intimidation or protection business.
Roger, that's a good point because there's always, if you remove
any force,
there's going to be a vacuum, and we saw it with Iraq.
Right.
Back in the early 2000s when we removed Saddam, there was a vacuum, and now you had Iran and other people trying to fill that vacuum, and the same thing's going to happen in your community.
Right. There's going to be people who are violent or who are gang related, and they are going to come out and say, you know what, the police aren't doing anything. You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and steal a little more. I'm going to get some money from this guy, and I'll protect him. I'll keep his store safe. I'll take care of it, but I'm going to need some money along the way.
Yeah, I'm going to need a little bit of hush money there. Bit.
All right, we're going to come back in just a minute. Money. We're going to take a minute for a few breaks. I am Roger B. This is Locked and Loaded, and you're listening to America's Web Radio.
If you live to serve and want to make an even bigger difference, consider joining the U.S. Army. With training in fields like medical care, linguistics, and engineering, an Army career can amplify your efforts with humanitarian opportunities all over the world. Plus, you'll receive competitive pay and incredible benefits, so you'll be taken care of, too. Learn more at GoArmy.com.
My name is Kyle Hayes, a motorsports student at Alfred State College. Every year, Alfred State students compete in the Great Race, which is a cross-country time endurance rally for vintage vehicles. As you can imagine, it's pretty costly. I'm asking for your help. Your donation can make it possible for these students to live their passion and promote the vintage automobile industry. Please visit our site at give.alfredstate.edu and search Great Race to learn more and help us reach our goal. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, I am Roger B., host of the Locked and Loaded Show on America's Web Radio. Be sure to join us live every Tuesday at 1500 hours for the latest in gun news, gun products, gun politics, and other gun-related stuff. That's Tuesday, 1500 hours, America's Web Radio.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
And we're back. I'm Roger B. This is Locked and Loaded, and you're listening to America's Web Radio. For a moment ago, we were talking about using Girl Scout cookies as projectiles as possible defensive mechanisms. So let me tell you about something that happened. 2 Georgia men were found guilty of trafficking guns and drugs in Girl Scout cookie boxes. Yeah, that's right. The Girl Scouts apparently were being taken advantage of, and these guys were deciding they were selling Girl Scout cookies or using the boxes and hiding guns and drugs inside the Girl Scout cookie boxes. Now, I guess they bought boxes of cookies, ate the cookies, and decided to use the cookie boxes again because they were a perfect disguise for almost any kind of illegal activity, I suppose, anything that'll fit in a cookie box. And the 2 brothers pleaded guilty and were sentenced to trafficking firearms in South Fulton County, Georgia. So, just so you know, be careful when you get that box of cookies. Make sure there's nothing illegal in there. Although, nothing against the Girl Scouts, because let me tell you, even if I'm on a diet, I can't resist Girl Scout cookies. I eat them all the time. Well, whenever they're available. And Boy Scout popcorn, too. So you should support those groups. All right. Now, Remington. I don't know if everyone's heard about Remington, but Remington is having issues. They've gone bankrupt. The company that owns them has gone bankrupt, and the factory is up there in New York, and it's been there for generations, since the early 1900s, I believe. Early mid-1900s, they've been there. They've been producing guns for almost 100 years. There were 600 workers at the Remington plant in New York. And as of now, last I checked, this is probably an ongoing dynamic situation, but all the workers have been fired by the company this past week or so. And that's a few months after they sought bankruptcy protection for the second time in 2 years. But there have been successful bidders to buy the plant, and the bankruptcy proceedings have said they plan to restart some production. Although, who knows if they're going to keep it up in that particular plant, especially with the unfriendly tax and gun environment in New York. Who knows if they're going to want to open in New York again? That would be ridiculous, I would think. Why would you open in a state that is unfriendly to your business or doesn't like what you're doing? But this is 600 people who were laid off because these guys, I think they were mismanaged, because Remington has been around. They've got good products. Oh, here it is, 1816. They've been in New York since 1816. So these people have been, a lot of these people are multi-generational workers in the Remington plant. They have been there for generations building guns. And it's sad to see something like this come to America, that our gun manufacturers can't stay in business. Now, granted, there are probably new manufacturers popping up all the time and taking over, and there has to be an evolution of things. But it's just sad because Remington is such a name that everybody knows. Everybody's probably shot one, or at least knows somebody. If you know someone who has several guns, they probably own a Remington something. Rifle, shotgun. They make some of the most prolific shotguns anywhere, and the Remington 700 rifle, probably one of the most well-known bolt-action rifles ever built. So it's sad to think that the plant, and there are 600 union workers there, 100 or so salaried workers, and about 1,200 altogether, including cleanups and stuff like that, and maintaining the grounds and things like that. And it's amazing that this happened during the time where gun sales have just gone through the roof. Record sales in every month of 2020, I believe, since February. Gun sales are not doing anything but going up. And that's even continuing now. It has gone, gun sales are just going as fast as they can go. And that gets me into the next story. That gun sales are going so hard and so fast, a lot of gun stores can't keep enough supply to keep themselves busy. They can't keep enough supply to have enough customers coming in to buy stuff. Now, you would hope that they'd sell everything they can get, but if they can't get enough, they can't sell enough to keep their doors open. And there's one story. It's a California gun store. This is on Bearing Arms. If you've never been to the BearingArms.com site, by all means go there. Those guys write some of the best articles about guns, gun politics, and stories about gun manufacturers and politics. They are some of the best. But they were talking about a place called Get a Gun, opened 15 years ago in Bakersfield, California. And now they're going to be closing for good. And they say a lot of it is because the California is coming after them and trying to penalize them by fining them for very minor issues. And the likelihood of an impending Harris-Biden administration is also going to be driving a lot of these stores to possibly close, especially if they can't get inventory or have any, hesitation with what they're going to carry or what they're going to be able to sell. Who knows? I mean, we don't know that they can pass the laws that they want to pass. And it's funny because everybody keeps telling me, oh, well, if the Republicans retain the Senate, then they won't pass any gun laws. Well, let me tell you something. In 1986, the Hughes Act, which limited ownership of fully automatic weapons to American citizens, was passed by the Republicans. A Republican president signed it. Now, what the Hughes Act did is said anything manufactured after 1986 that's fully automatic will not be allowed to be sold to American citizens. So they limited our rights. They infringed on the right to keep and bear arms. They did. It was terrible. And it was a Republican who did it. President Reagan signed that act. He was probably forcing some compromise through so he could get something else he wanted. But what this did is basically eliminated the possibility of ownership of automatic guns for anybody who just wanted to use them for recreational use. Because what I've seen is weapons that were going for a couple $1,000s back in the early mid 80s, all of a sudden now are going for 10 times, 15 times that amount. I had an opportunity at one time to be offered an MP5 for $3,500. That same weapon now is between $40,000 and $50,000 because the supply is limited. There's no more coming into the system. Any of them that are destroyed or are sucked into collections where they're sitting there are no longer on the market. The market has been limited. It's a small market, and as America grows, there's more and more demand, but nobody can get any of these. And this was a Republican president that signed this into law, which it makes me hesitate to think that they're always going to be one-sided or the other when it comes to gun laws. And in 1989, I believe it was Bush Sr. who signed the Foreign, quote-unquote, Assault Weapons Act into law, which limited imports of certain types of weapons that they deemed were more dangerous than others from coming into the country, or ones that had too many foreign parts in them. Now, some of these were being brought into the country again, enough parts replaced to meet the minimum requirements, and then they could be resold. But it's so silly that they're doing this, and that was a Republican again who did that. And on bump stocks, the Obama ATF approved bump stocks, use, ownership, all that. The Trump administration took that back, made them illegal with no compensation. You had to destroy, get rid of it, or hand it into the government. There was no compensation for anyone who bought a bump stock. Now it's all of a sudden illegal. They just flipped it with a regulation. There was no law passed. And that's, I think, the way Biden is coming after our guns. He's going to come after them through regulation. And that's what a lot of these gun stores are afraid of. It's odd because, there was a gun store in California. They closed. They've been open for since 15 years ago. Now there's another gun shop in New York. They have been open for 110 years. Apparently, John Giovino Gun Shop in Little Italy was first opened up in 1911, but his owner says they can't pay rent without customers. So apparently, he can't get enough inventory to keep it open. So he was going to retire anyway when he turned 75. So if he makes it to January 1st, 2021, that'll be 110 years. He's happy about that. He's kept the gun shop open for 110 years, and he turned 75 so he can retire. He'll get out. But it's still sad that these guys have this great tradition of, providing opportunity to purchase weapons to American citizens, and the fact that they can't get the guns to sell to anybody. But, supply and demand, you figure that's, it drives a lot of businesses. And I guess he maybe should have updated the way he was getting his weapons, should have foresaw the possibility that maybe he couldn't get them, overstock stuff. But again, in New York, it's very difficult because the government is against your business. They don't like what you do. They don't like the way you do business. They don't like what you sell. So you may see a lot more gun shops going down the tube, so to speak, because they can't get the inventory they need. Hopefully, the supply will start to pick up a little bit as people start stocking up on what they need, and they'll be able to have, at least guns will be able to be sold. Now, ammunition, I've seen this firsthand. It has gotten to the point where it is worth more than precious metals. I was at a gun show a couple of weeks ago just browsing, and we saw average price of a 9mm box ammo, 50 rounds, was between $30 and $35. Which, as you know, that's probably about 3 to 4 times about 3 times what it normally is. Usually $8 to $12 for a box of standard 9mm full metal jackets is pretty good. $15 top of the market. They were going for $30, $35 a few weeks ago. This last week, that same box was going for $50 to $60, over $1 a round for 9mm ammo when you can find it. Was in a couple of big box stores the other day, did not have a single round of any 9mm, 5.56, 40 cal, 45, 308s were all gone. Now, if you have something odd, like a 6mm Creedmoor, had plenty of ammo for that. If you have something odd, you can sometimes find ammo for it, and that's what people will tell you. Sometimes you buy an odd caliber because it keeps your supply up a little easier when it's hard to get it. When it's easy to get it, though, the popular calibers are always in stock at better prices. So something to consider. That's something I want to talk about briefly today is multi-caliber handguns. There's a lot of weapons out there. 9mm and 40 caliber are exactly 1mm apart in size. The 40 caliber is a 10mm, and it's not a 10mm. It's not the 10mm cartridge, but it's a 10mm across cross section of the bullet. And the 9mm is obviously 9mm. And they are so close together that a lot of handguns can have barrel swaps and magazine swaps that will allow them to function with both with just a few parts swapped out. So in case you get to the point where 9mm is too hard to find and you can find 40, you have a chance to find that ammo. You might be able to still be shooting it. That's something to look out for. And also the 40 caliber uses the same casing as does the 357 SIG. The 357 SIG is a 40 caliber neck down to a .357 or .355, and it can use the same magazines as the 40 caliber with a barrel swap, of course. So essentially, you could have 3 different barrels, 2 different magazines, and fire 3 different calibers. Now, granted, it's probably more complicated than just buying another gun, but when the guns are that hard to find and ammo becomes difficult to find, you may want to find alternatives to using your preferred caliber. You may want to hold on to that 9mm and say, oh, well, look, here's 6 boxes of 357 SIG, and it's still more expensive than what I would normally pay for 9, but it's cheaper than what I can get 9 for now. So consider options in things like this, because right now, the way ammo is and the way guns are being sold, you got to find alternatives if you want to keep shooting or at least be able to stock up on anything. And I'm hoping once the president's assigned and he gets to work and everything kind of settles down a little bit, maybe people will calm down a little bit. And ammo prices will settle back down, gun prices will come back down, supplies will come back up. At least until something happens, a shooting takes place, or something happens to drive the frenzy again. But right now we can really use a little bit of calming down to get things to where they need to be again. If you've been listening to me for a while, you know at the beginning of this year, I was telling everybody, beginning of this year, end of last year, this is the best time ever to purchase weapons or ammunition because they were at the cheapest point they've been at in probably 25 years. ARs were going for $400, you could buy them completely assembled brand new for $400. Now that same one is probably $700 to $800, and some of them are more expensive than that. Of course, they go up from there, but the prices on the guns have gone up probably at least 30 to 40, 50%. Price of ammo has gone just 5-6 times what it was. So if you missed out when you should have been preparing, now you're going to have to panic buy. And when you have to panic buy, you're always going to pay more for the panic price.
Let me ask you, Mr. B, if I've been giving folks the right advice. I've had 2 friends come to me just within the past less than week and knew that, that we do this show, you do this show, and they know that I like to go to a range every now and then.
As does everybody.
Both of them have never owned a weapon in their life. And they said, what do we do? And I said, well, the best thing you could do, in my opinion, is go to a range and they'll rent you a weapon or let you borrow a weapon as long as you pay for the ammunition.
Usually you pay the rental fee, which is like $10. You can use any gun in the case,
okay, well,
as long as you buy their ammo.
Right. And I said, you can get a weapon, try it out, and decide what feels good to you. Don't, and at the same time, ask the owner or the person that you're talking to about the availability of ammunition. But get something that's you're going to feel good with, whether it's a small 380 or a 45 or a 40 caliber or 9 millimeter or whatever it might be that you're comfortable with and firing. Don't go by just what the person says at the store or me, because I can't tell you what you're going to feel
Everybody,
comfortable
it's like
with.
asking somebody what kind of car you should buy. They don't know what kind of driving you do necessarily.
Exactly.
Now, if they're experienced, you can probably explain to them what you want, and they can probably guide you in the right direction. But until you get your hands on something, and the thing is, too, you're going to have to know how the proper way to hold a weapon before you can put your hands on it and see whether it's going to be comfortable.
Right.
Because not everybody does it the way they do it in the movies. They don't just grab it one-handed, pick it up out of the box sideways, and start blazing away.
Well, just call me Cheyenne.
Quick draw, McGraw.
Yeah. But no, I think I've given them legitimate advice about going and
perfect.
Familiarize yourself with because there's and a lot depends on what you want or what you want to do with it.
Right. What you think your priorities are going to be as far as what you need a weapon for.
Yeah. And so I said, go and these people are experienced, and you can hone it down to 2 or 3 even at the counter that feel good, and then take them and buy the ammunition and let somebody go in with you and
see if they have. First, like you said, check the rental case. Usually it's one fee, $10, $15. That unlocks the entire rental cabinet of guns for you. With all the handguns. The rifles are generally a little more, but you pay that $15 fee, and you can probably choose from 50 different handguns, and you can try 10 rounds out of one, 20 rounds out of one, a box out of each one, and you can shoot as many guns as you want or have the money to shoot till you find the one that you like the best. Then go look at it, see if they have it in stock, and see about making a purchase.
I think the biggest thing is, and when you're talking to the person behind the counter, is to give them an idea of what I want it for home protection. I want it to sit beside me in the car and talk to me.
Right.
I want to, do this. I want it for this or that.
I want to
put
it in the nightstand.
Yeah.
And then they may ask you questions that you don't have answers to yet. Like, are you going to carry it? And they're like, I don't know. Should I carry it? It's like, do you feel comfortable doing that? Or do you think it's something you may want to do in the future? And sometimes people will tell me, oh, no, I'm never going to carry it. And then they end up, becoming a little more of an enthusiast and getting more familiar and comfortable with it and decide, you know what, I think I could carry it and I'd be comfortable with that. In fact, our own IT guy had the same thoughts when he purchased his first one. He came to me back when Obama, I think, first got elected, thinking, I need some help purchasing something. Can you help me? I don't know. If I don't get it now, I don't think I'll be able to get it.
Well, and the thing is, you don't want a huge Glock or a huge 9 millimeter that you might carry. Well,
if you're 6'5" and 300 pounds, it's not as huge to you.
Yeah. But if you're my size or most people's sizes, it's going to sort of stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah,
and
you can adjust your wardrobe to help cover some of that
yeah,
too.
depending on what you're wanting to do with it. But you know,
It also depends on climate. During the wintertime, I'll sometimes wear a bigger gun than I will in the summertime because I can conceal it easier from wearing a jacket everywhere.
Sure.
Of course, if you live in Montana, you wear a jacket all the time. I think summer's what, like 2 weeks up there in Montana?
Plus, you have a strap on it to keep it in your holster when you're riding horseback across the prairie smoking Marlboros.
There you go. Yes,
So,
I'm sure everybody in Montana is mad at us now, but that's okay. It's actually a compliment. Trust me.
Are there people in Montana?
Yeah, there's like 7 or 8 of them up there, I think.
Oh, okay. I thought they were just cows.
Yeah, and if summer falls on a weekend, they have a barbecue.
Oh, okay.
No, Montana is beautiful country. I've been there, and it would not be a place I would feel ashamed to call home if I ever got the opportunity to do that. It is amazing up there.
I must say Montana is one of the, what is it? Obama said 57 states that it's one of the 57 I haven't gone to, but excluding the other 6.
Yeah, I've been through most. I've been through Montana, North and South Dakota, and all through Nebraska, came up through Washington and Oregon, which also beautiful states.
Beautiful.
But the politics there just make them so ugly.
New Mexico's a gorgeous
New Mexico, Arizona, they have some amazing natural wonders there. Like, what is it? I think it's the Wave in Arizona. They got that huge, like, sandstone carved mountain path you can walk through, and the colors are just unbelievable. And, of course, there's Wyoming, where you have the Grand Tetons, and Yellowstone National Park. And all
then
that.
there's Texas that has one of everything.
Yeah, well,
and we have 2 of some things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Alaska comes and gets all bowed up and says, "Oh yeah, don't make me cut myself in half and make Texas the 3rd biggest state."
They're going to melt one of these days.
Yeah, when all the water's gone, they'll lose all their water weight.
Yeah. Anyway, but no, if you're thinking about getting a weapon, and if you're thinking about if it's just strictly for home security, maybe instead of a pistol, you want a shotgun. And
yeah. I mean, it depends on your situation, though. Are you there with other people? Are you there by yourself? You don't want to be blasting a shotgun if there's other people in the house.
No, but if you're there by yourself and somebody's breaking in, you're there with other people all of a sudden.
Yeah, a shotgun is a very good deterrent. Yes, it is. And the thing is, but if you don't know anything about weapons, I would say to start with a handgun always. It's the easiest thing. It's easy to manipulate. It's easy to hold. It's easy to store. If you have a shotgun and you keep it thrown in the closet somewhere and something happens, you have to try and dig it out. Because a lot of people will load a handgun, stick it in a desk drawer or stick it in a nightstand and never look at it again. And, that's fine. If that's what you want to do. Not recommended, but you can do it.
If you have a question about it, just email our Roger at americaswebradio.com, or you came up with another cockamamie email address or something, didn't you?
No, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't?
No, that's it. Roger at americaswebradio.com.
Okay.
That's it.
Oh, I guess it was somebody else, another host.
Entirely possible. But yeah, I will do my best to answer your questions. I am not claiming to be an expert in any way, form, or fashion. I just have a lot of time to hear other people talk about it, so I pick up things. I hear things. Guys talk. Word gets around, It's just all hearsay.
And you enjoy your guns, your weapons.
The ones I still have left. I have very few left after the boating accident.
That's true.
That's right. And, they claim the ATF was talking about flotation devices for weapons. I don't know what all that's about.
Well, you have a monument out at Lake Lanier with a flag on it, don't you, floating around where the boat went down?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there's hundreds of them all over Lake Lanier, all over the oceans of the southeast, all over the place.
But anyway,
but yeah, consider multi-calibers. And if you're looking at rifles, the multi-caliber weapon I like the best is the AR-15 because simply by a swap of the top of the gun, 2 pins pulled, top comes off, new top goes on, you can change calibers to something. So if you find other calibers available, and most of them, a lot of them do not, there are some that don't require magazine change, some do. But your lower receiver will be the same for most of those cartridges. And you can run let's see, 5.56, 300 blackout, same magazines, only requires a barrel change. But changing a barrel on an AR is not as easy as changing on a pistol, so most people just swap the tops out. And you can use a 7.6239 Russian cartridge, which requires a top swap and a magazine change, but the same lower receiver. Same thing, I believe, with a 6.5 Grendel. 450 Bushmaster requires a top change and a magazine change.
And be sure you have them marked well, so if you change them out.
Yeah, you don't end up putting that's a common thing with the 300 blackout and the 5.56. You can end up putting one in the other and ends up blowing things apart pretty easily. But hopefully if you pay attention to what you're doing, make sure everything seats properly when it goes to battery. Pay attention. I would mark it. They make Sharpies that are actually paint pens in silver, gold, white, and you can mark on your weapon what it is, what it takes, what the barrel is, or put white fill in on the front of the barrel where they usually mark the caliber, so you know. Look at it carefully if you're swapping calibers around. As yes, that can be dangerous when you're doing that and not paying attention.
Yes.
I was actually at the range once working as a safety officer, and a guy comes over. He was over there and he was shooting, and he flags me over, so I go over there and look. He goes, yeah, I keep shooting this and it shoots 1 or 2 times and then it's jamming. So I'm looking down at his table there, and I find one of the cartridges, and he was shooting 9mm cartridges in a 40 caliber handgun, and it was firing, but it would jam every other time or so because the bullets were too small. So I told him I put the box back together. I said, take it back up. Tell him you need 40 caliber, not 9mm for this gun. They apparently didn't check it. He didn't know what he needed. I don't know if the guy at the counter just handed him 9 thinking it was a 9, or he told him it was a 9, but it was a 40 caliber and he was shooting 9mm ammo in it, and it was functioning though. I mean, I don't know if he was hitting anything, because that's the barrel bullet bouncing down the barrel, but he didn't hurt anything. He didn't hurt the gun, didn't hurt himself, nothing malfunctioned, because 1mm on each side of the cartridge, that's a 0.5 millimeter on each side of the cartridge, is almost enough to where it'll work. But yeah, be careful when you're swapping calibers, or if you have any doubts, ask somebody to check it. Get somebody who knows what they're doing to look at it for you, because they can usually identify the cartridge. Unless it's something really old, military produced, then you may just have to get somebody who knows the weapon itself to know what it was chambered for. But almost all modern weapons are marked with what caliber they are. And if they have conversion calibers, a lot of times they will mark those on the barrel too, telling you this is a 9mm barrel for a 40 caliber weapon. Which, I mean, one of the ones I like to convert the most is the Glocks, because they are so easy. A lot of them you just need a barrel and a magazine, and that's it. All the springs, the ejectors, all that stuff, the extractors all work between 40 and 9mm. Now, ideally, you're supposed to change your extractor to a 9mm extractor, but they're so close, a lot of times they'll offset the barrel just ever so slightly, give it a 1/4 millimeter push to one side so the extractor gets a good grab on the cartridge, and it works fine. I've had one, I've shot thousands of rounds through with never a malfunction, and it works flawlessly. So that's something to consider. Like I say, in these times when ammo is hard to find, give yourself as much variety as possible. While normally you want to keep things as simple as possible, as few calibers as possible to keep things simple, easy, this is one of those times when you may want to consider purchasing an extra barrel for a gun to have a different caliber available. But make sure you research and know what you can turn into what.
And as that person is breaking in, you ask them, do you want to be hit by 40 caliber or 9mm, or what is your choice of
would you like a 12
bullet?
Gauge and a 2 3/4 inch, or a 3.5 inch? Yeah, I'm sure they're gonna know what the hell you're talking about, but that would still be funny though.
When your hollow core door has this 3-foot hole in it.
That was a shotgun.
That was a shotgun, yes. But anyway, but probably not with buckshot, actually, because the pattern would be rather smaller with buckshot than it would be with a smaller.
Oh yeah, buckshot holds a really tight group. I mean, especially inside a house. I mean, it's meant to go 50 to 75 yards pretty easy and hit a deer-sized object. So you're talking 10, 20 feet away, it's going to be like, maybe the size of a fist. It probably won't expand any across a house.
And
very little.
The leg will bleed a lot.
Well, it's funny because a shotgun is a devastating weapon. Double-aught buck is, I think, 33 caliber pellets, 9 of them. That means every time you pull the trigger on a double-aught buckshot, you're firing 9 33 caliber bullets. So you imagine that. I mean, boom, boom, boom. There, you just fired, 27 rounds of 30 caliber ammo at somebody with 3 shots.
And that guy goes from a bass to a soprano very quickly.
Oh yeah, it's devastating. But be aware that in your house, though, you're gonna realize if you miss, or even if it goes through him, or you don't hit him with every pellet, you're gonna have devastating damage. There's gonna be blood and pieces of body everywhere, and you're gonna have pellets in every wall in the house if you're not careful.
But that's what they got servo for.
Yeah,
Serco or whatever.
Insurance.
Yeah, and insurance. Yes,
that's right.
Anyway, he shouldn't have been there to begin with.
Oh,
Or
that's
she
right.
shouldn't have been. But anyway, okay, it's about time to take a quick break, and that's exactly what we're going to do in 2 ways. One, we're going to take a break for the Army that we have their promo, but also remind everybody of the great shows that we have on America's Web Radio. We have tomorrow a great lineup. Thursday we start out at 8 o'clock with the Doctor's Lounge. That has become one of the most popular shows going, next to Lock and Loaded, of course. But the Doctor's Lounge, people are listening more and more, and they'll be talking about the vaccine, I'm sure. But they've also been talking politics and what this administration has suggested doing that will ruin our medical abilities to get the best. And, a one-payer system would destroy our medical system. We're already on the brink of disaster with our medical system and hospitalists working for hospitals instead of you. And I just went through a situation on some charges that were just absolutely absurd. But that's part of what we're getting today. And so, Locked and Loaded, we just finished Victor's On Point. And then we've got the Doctor's Lounge on Thursday morning. And, if you want to take a box of Kleenex to your room and listen to a show, or to your office and listen to it, go to a veteran's story and listen to Pete Mecca's show from Veterans Day. It will put tears in your eyes. It's all about the story of a World War II pilot, and it is one of the best shows I think we've ever had on America's Web Radio. But you got to have your Kleenex. We don't furnish Kleenex here, and I don't want you to forget that, Roger.
Okay, no Kleenex furnished here.
No Kleenex furnished here.
Cry into your sleeve. That's all you can do.
That's it. So, with that being said, let's get back to Mr. Roger B. and Locked and Loaded.
All right. Now, I know a lot of you are concerned. We talked a little bit about Republicans versus Democrats on gun control, and to be honest, I don't think we can trust any politicians. But the gun industry is warning us now of a backdoor Biden-Harris gun ban. Now, keep in mind, regulations have long been a way where people can limit weapons without actually passing laws, which seems crazy, but with the ATF, with the IRS, I mean, there are ways they can get regulations passed which have more power than some laws do. And they're saying Biden is still going to plan. He does not want anybody to have military-styled weapons or weapons with certain features on that he deems dangerous. Just like he probably thinks putting a racing stripe on a car makes it into a race car, he thinks putting a pistol grip on a weapon turns it into a machine gun. But, politicians don't know anything about guns, but they like to try and pretend they do. So the scare here is that the Biden administration is going to work with the ATF and try and pass regulation or change regulations or change classifications of weapons. The first thing I've heard, this was earlier this week, I heard a guy from a place called Guns and Gadgets. He apparently knows people in the government. I guess maybe he used to serve in the government under some capacity. And he was saying that the first thing they're going to go after is 80% lowers, which if you have AR-15s or Glocks or SIGs, they have a lot of these weapons which are 80% finished on the receiver. You finish out the rest of it, and then it's your weapon, and you don't have to register it or have a serial number on it if it's for your personal use only. And that that procedure has been around since the 1700s. You were allowed to make your own weapons, and it's never been taken away from us until maybe now. So I don't even know. Now they're talking about eliminating or reclassifying pistol braces, which for the last probably 7, 8, 9 years have been a godsend as far as building a little shorter version of a rifle-powered pistol. A rifle caliber pistol with a pistol brace makes it so much easier to handle, so much easier to use. And now they're talking about reclassifying those as what's called an SBR, or a short-barreled rifle, which would require a $200 tax stamp. Now keep in mind, there's over 1.5 million of these in circulation already, way more than there were bump stocks. But if they reclassify them, everybody's going to have to get a $200 tax stamp just to be able to own this. Now, what they've done in the past is they give you they grandfather you in for the first owner. He doesn't have to pay for the tax stamp, but he has to apply for it and get it. But then every transfer after that has to be done on a tax stamp. But if I know Democrats, they're spending so much money, they're going to need everybody to pay that $200, because they're going to want to try and take as many of these out of people's hands as they possibly can. But here's the big one. Okay, so say they eliminate pistol braces, which would be, to me, just a horrible thing. Eliminate the 80% lowers, again, a terrible thing. They're not supposed to restrict our rights. It says in the Second Amendment, shall not be infringed. And even the Ninth Circuit Court has stood up just recently and said you cannot limit someone's magazine capacity as part of a Second Amendment protection. That falls under Second Amendment protection, having the ability to have whatever size magazine you would like. But things are going to change, because if the Democrats take control of all houses and the presidency, they're going to start passing gun laws. And if they can't, they're going to find ways to regulate. This is the one that scared me the most, is that they were talking about reclassifying all AR-15 style weapons as Class 3. This means any type of AR weapon, or any type of anything they consider, I hate the term, but quote-unquote assault rifle, they're going to classify as a Class 3 weapon, which means you have to pay a $200 tax stamp just to possess it. And you have to keep that tax stamp as proof of ownership, carry it with you, or carry a copy of it with you when you go shoot it, just to show that it's yours and you own it. And there are millions and millions of AR-15s out there. Could you imagine every one that you've got or friends have? Everyone has to be registered, have a $200 tax stamp on it, and so they're going to collect millions and millions of dollars of taxes if they get this to go through. But this would require a reclassification through the ATF of an AR-15 as a Class 3 weapon. Now, I hope this never comes to being. This would be such an infringement on our rights. It would be horrific to me. Of course, there are those who believe the 1934 Gun Act is a horrific infringement, which it probably is. I mean, if you get your background check and you're able to own a weapon, you should own whatever you want. There should be no limitations. Shall not be infringed does not mean anything but that. It's so easy. Shall not be infringed. 4 words that mean government cannot restrict your right to own whatever you want. Can you own a tank? Sure you can. Can you own bullets for the gun in the tank? Probably not. But a tank
you can drive over and get them.
A tank is just a car, that's all it is, a car with treads on it. But this would pretty much destroy the Firearms Act. And he also wants to push to repeal the Protection of Unlawful Commerce in Arms Act, exposing manufacturers to harassing lawsuits by activist lawyers to try and bankrupt manufacturers for political means. Because right now you can't sue a gun manufacturer if someone uses a gun in the commission of a crime. As long as the gun functioned as it should, was a properly provided product, and did what it was supposed to do, there's no liability on the part of the manufacturer. Now, if they get this done, though, that means anybody who shoots anybody with any gun, you'll be able to sue the gun manufacturer for what a criminal did with it. Even though he committed the crime, he used it improperly, he was the criminal, the gun manufacturer will be responsible, which basically is going to drive every gun manufacturer out of this country. Any guns that come in will probably come from countries where they can take our laws and tell us to stuff it if we don't want to. They're going to say, yeah, sue away, we don't care. But then again, they'll probably limit those imports also. So they're just going to basically shut down the gun industry, by bogging them down with legal harassment suits that they're going to have to defend themselves against.
Where are our gun organizations, the NRA and the rest of them?
Hopefully they're fighting against this ridiculous, stuff. I don't know. I haven't.
So I guess another point that we should make is if you're not a member of NRA,
by all means, join whatever gun rights group you can join. Join all of them.
And support them.
Right.
It takes, we have the idea that the government has limited funds or non-limited funds.
Right.
And these organizations that are fighting for you and me do have limited funds. And it takes a lot of money to fight the government.
Right. It generally does. And to have a rights group on your side for a lawsuit makes everything way easier, and you may actually get results you want. And people who are with you or like-minded are going to appreciate the fact that you had to go through that, and hopefully you'll get extra funding to pay for your time and everything you had to do to go through it. In fact, a lot of times there are people who stand up, do something they know the government is against just so they can get arrested and then start the lawsuit process. It's kind of weird, but that's almost how it has to work, because you can't really sue unless you have a plaintiff, a complainant, someone to complain to make the case. And then, of course, the smart gun thing has come up again, where every gun has to have mandatory smart gun technology. And Obama tried to do that at one point. And I'm saying, let's start off with Secret Service. Let's give them all smart guns. Let's see how that works. Yeah, lead by example. That's what politicians need to do. You want to be a leader, lead by example. But you're not a leader. You're not a ruler. You're a representative. You represent the people who put you there. Never forget that. Because those people can take you out, although most of them won't, because they're too stupid to know what rights. They're willing to pawn off their rights for security. And Ben Franklin said it 200 years ago. Those who are willing to trade freedoms for temporary security deserve neither. So if you're willing to trade your gun rights away for what you think is going to be security, you think the government's going to protect you, you think the criminals will all of a sudden throw down their guns because the laws have changed, let me tell you something. That's been proven throughout our history to not be true. Criminals don't obey laws. That's why they're criminals. Drugs have been illegal for decades, and yet they can't stop them. In fact, Oregon just made cocaine legal. The only problem is you can't snort it up with a plastic straw because that's illegal.
And what's a street gun?
A street gun?
Yeah.
I don't know. What's a street gun?
That's one that you can buy on the street from
an
criminal.
illegal weapon.
Criminal doesn't go in a store and show his driver's license and
Right.
get checked. He buys it on the street.
An illegally obtained weapon. Yeah, which most weapons used in crimes are illegally obtained.
Okay, well, you know what time it is?
It's time to go home. Think about joining gun rights groups. Get with your neighbors. Make a plan for potential civil unrest. And time to think about all the things that are going to protect your rights from here on out until next week when we come back to Locked and Loaded on America's Web Radio.
If you live to serve and want to make an even bigger difference, consider joining the U.S. Army with training in fields like